What criteria can we use? What do we look at to find out if this is going to be a good source to use or not? What is a good set of criteria? And we're going to look at aspect. Look at every aspect. And what that stands for: authority, sources, purpose, evenness, coverage, and timeliness. We're going to look at each of these individually. When you look at a source and you're trying to decide, should I use this or not, you want to look at the aspect. So let's start at the top. Authority. So you're going to want to look at what's the authority behind this. Now, something to remember: occasionally reference books don't necessarily have an individual author, so maybe an editor or a publisher would be who you're going to look at as the authority on that. There's not necessarily one person who wrote that. That's something to keep in mind when you're looking at what are the author's qualifications. Who's the authority? And that authority might be a famous publisher or an editor, something along those lines. But you want to find out who's the authority behind that. What are the qualifications? Are they an expert in this field? Is the author someone who is known in that field or has written a lot, done a lot of research in that field of study? Whatever you're doing your research on, are they a Shakespearean expert? Yes or no? Are they well known for that? So these are the things you want to ask yourself when you're looking at different sources. What's the reputation of the author or publisher? That's something that you may not find out until you go into a special field or a certain field. When you declare a major and you're getting into more and more researching into one field, you may not start to recognize authors' names. But that's good, kind of harkening back to our discussion about reading an encyclopedia article about your topic. If someone's been mentioned in the encyclopedia, you may run across other references to them, or they may have written some things that you run across when you're looking for books or articles. So they would probably have a good reputation. Some publishers are, as I said, well known for publishing reputably in certain fields. So even if the author you don't know who the author is, or you're not sure about that, the publisher maybe has a good reputation in that field. So you want to look for that. The next aspect, sources. You want to take a look at the sources of information that the authors have used. Have the sources been listed? Is there a bibliography for checking the references? You need to be able to check the author's sources. Even if you don't actually go and verify all their sources, having that documentation available shows some credibility and responsibility to the process. You want to know that they are giving credit where credit is due and citing their sources. And remember back to our other presentation about the pearl growing strategy, you can use those sources to lead yourself to new sources. So that also works to your advantage there. But you want to make sure, have they documented their sources of information? Or does it seem like they're just making everything up? Next aspect, purpose. Why was this written? What was the purpose of the publication? The intention behind the publication can affect its contents. If you're looking at a website and they're trying to sell nutritional supplements, maybe they're going to have an article that talks about how important that vitamin is, or something like that. So what is their purpose there? Are they trying to sell you something, like in that example? Are they trying to entertain you? Is this just written with creative license in mind, I guess, for entertainment purposes? Or is it informational? Are they trying to just share information? What's the purpose behind the publication? Who is their target audience? Sometimes you have to look around and see who's the target on this. When you figure that out, is it general readers? Is it experts? You can look at the language and how something is written. Is it too basic, or is it too technical or advanced for what you're looking for? If you're doing an intro class and you're reading something that's too technical, it's geared for other scientists in the field who already have lots of history in that and they understand all the jargon and the lingo, then that might be too advanced for you to use. Or if it's too basic, just because something is correct information doesn't mean it's always appropriate. Maybe a children's book on a topic written for little kids is accurate and factual information. It's not misleading or wrong, but that would be inappropriate for a college level paper if you use a children's book on a topic. You need to look at that. Is that appropriate for your use? Does it match up with what you're trying to accomplish? Evenness. You want to look for balance. Are you looking at facts or opinions? It's a good question. You want to kind of figure out, is this just this person's opinion on the topic, or are they backing up any assertions that they're making? Are they backing those up with facts? Have they documented it? Again, but recognizing the difference there. Is this objective? Are they giving both sides of the story? Are they recognizing that there are other perspectives? Or does the author maybe acknowledge that they have a bias? If they are writing from a certain point of view, a lot of times they will state that. This is my perspective, and they'll tell you if they're coming from a certain area. Just because there is a bias does not mean you can't read it. You can't use it. You need to immediately throw it away. That's not what I'm saying. But if it is kind of a biased treatment, maybe you're looking for that. Maybe you want to see what are they saying on this one side? But you've got to remember evenness. Balance that out then. If you're getting a lot of things that are biased in one way, balance that out with the other point of view. And so even if it's not objective, that doesn't mean you can't use it, but you really got to watch for balance. So you want to balance that back out with something else. Coverage. So in addition to being objective or biased, then you need to look at what kind of coverage does this source give to your topic. How thoroughly is your topic covered? Is it just skimming over it? Is it really an overview, something that's very superficial? It's not really going to give you what you want. It's not going to be supportive enough of your topic. Is it comprehensive enough to support your research needs? Is that gonna be enough? These are all things. Some of these are about the quality of the source, and some of it is about applicable to your research. So we're looking at both things here. And then timeliness. You don't want to use something that is too old for your topic. Is the information up to date? Have new discoveries or events changed the accuracy of the information? Currency may not be important in some subject areas. In the medical field, absolutely. You need the most recent stuff. They want you to not use things that are very old. We want to be up to date. Medical field is changing all the time, a lot. And so you want to be up to date on that. History, sometimes the best thing that was written about something is still 20, 30, 40 years old. And that's just the best source that's still out there. But even so, keeping in mind that something written 50 years ago may still be the most thorough coverage of the War of 1812. That might still be appropriate. But things sometimes change. Events happen. For example, once the Iron Curtain came down, we had lots more access in the West to information out of the Soviet Union and some things, documentation. There's been a lot more research that's come out from that area, from Eastern Europe and Russia, that we just didn't have access to for a lot of years. They'd closed that off. And so things that were published during that time period when people didn't have access to that might not be as accurate as they used to be. Scientific information. A few years ago, Pluto was declassified. It's no longer a planet. So if you have science books or books about the stars that say Pluto is a planet, those things have changed. That's not accurate anymore. So you want to use a little bit of common sense and also see what has changed that may have affected the timeliness of the information. Just because it's old doesn't mean it is not good, but you want to make sure it's still appropriate. So when you're evaluating resources, you want to look at every aspect of the source and make sure it's appropriate both as a quality source and appropriate to your research.